This is Robert Hunt, who's the General Manager of the Venue Technology Services functional area within the organisation. Today we were asked to talk about bringing Glasgow 2014 to life, with attempting to bring some relevance to your industry, which is obviously not my first area of expertise, but we'll do our best, and just want to bring you some of the kind of technical, financial, structural challenges that we have, and hopefully make it relevant to you guys as well. First of all, just to give you some kind of idea of the scale of what we're working with up in Glasgow 2014, it's obviously quite a different scale and size to what we like to refer to as our test event last year. As you can see, we've got a £476 million delivery budget, which is the total spend for the organising committee. There's been £2 billion worth of games-related infrastructure spend from the City Council and the Scottish Government. 70 nations, representing 1/3 of the world's population, will take part, sending us 6,500 athletes and officials to compete in 17 sports. There were 1 million tickets available, of which we sold 92% already. 15,000 volunteers, 40 competition and non-competition venues, and a potential global audience of 1.5 million. Rob will give you some of the more of the scope statistics from a technical perspective.
Okay, thanks, Philip. I'm not going to read through all those. My favourite one, I think, out of all of that is the 14 million sheets of paper. I load those printers personally myself, every single one of them. No, I think the thing to highlight here, and you guys will be very familiar with this in your industry, is all this stuff is temporary. We bring it in, we set it up, we hopefully get time to test it. We do the gig and we pull it all out again. Most of it is rental where possible, so very similar to what you guys do day in, day out. It is all temporary install. I think the thing for us which makes it a little more challenging is the fact that we're doing it across 31 different venues all at the same time. We're dealing with multiple different stakeholders, whether it's the press, host broadcasters, rights holding broadcasters, and every other man and his dog, athletes, federations, who all have quite high stakes in this. Our venues, we've got 3 fantastic new venues: the Hydro, Emirates Arena, and the Athletes Village, where the 6,500 athletes and officials will be living. Both the Hydro and the Emirates Arena are alive and kicking and holding events, and for Glasgow it's quite a legacy. They're quite fantastic venues. I've actually ridden the velodrome myself. It's quite an outstanding venue. I think the thing that impresses me most with these venues is that they've approached these with a production and a broadcast thought with regards to infrastructure. Simple things like power, place to put OB vans, cable pathways, rigging, access. So things like that, things that a lot of older venues perhaps didn't think about or consider, or didn't think that their budget should allow them first, so they got missed when they started getting short of money. But with these venues, they've actually done a fantastic job, and I think it's going to be a pleasure working in these venues.
I just wanted to kind of bring to life now some of the commercial and contracting challenges we have within Glasgow 2014, and obviously try and slant them towards the broadcast industry as well, and just kind of talk you through some of the quite unique things we've had to do. So first of all, if I can just outline some of the challenges we've faced in that arena. There's a total procurement spend for the games of circa £350 million, which, to put that in context, is roughly 1/3 of what the London Olympics spent on security last year. So we have to do essentially more with less. We don't have less demanding spectators, we don't have less demanding athletes, and we don't have less demanding television audiences. We simply have to do more with less to give everybody the spectacle that they desire. Added to that challenge, Glasgow 2014 is the first multi-sport event ever to be managed under European procurement law. Now, I don't know if any of you are familiar with how that operates. It's very different to how games have operated in the past. We can't negotiate directly. We have to procure things on an auditable public framework. We have to show transparency and fair and equal treatment to all bidders, which is obviously quite difficult when you're throwing things like a host broadcaster contract, you're throwing things like a broadcast rights agent contract open to the entire world. There's an awful lot of challenge there, because obviously a Commonwealth Games isn't a forum for people who kind of want to up the game, people who want to enter into a market. It's a forum for experienced people, but we have to give everybody that same opportunity and still arrive at an outcome that satisfies everybody. In addition to that, obviously the Games is part funded by sponsorship, and we have to fold those requirements into a public contracting framework as well, which presents its own challenges because that framework is not designed to take that. So the solution to these problems for us right the way through, and I'll go into detail on this in terms of host broadcaster and broadcast rights agent, is it's creative thinking within what I've just described as a very tight legislative framework. And the way we kind of looked at this is to design risk out of this process, to make it more attractive to more people. A traditional games approach would be to appoint your host broadcaster perhaps a year, or even as little in some cases 9 months out from the games. We decided to kick that process off more than 2 years out, and that was in order that to operate against that budget that we have, that reduced budget. We have to do more with less. We baselined time and cost within the scope of works for that to present to potential host broadcasters 2.5 years in advance, which obviously gives them more certainty in responding to us, which enables them to give a better price that isn't padded out with contingency and risk. So that's kind of one element of the approach, but if I can just discuss a few more before I pass on to Rob to discuss some of the challenges we have technically within our venues. From within the industry, within Scotland, within the UK, we've had absolutely massive enthusiasm across all sectors and across kind of broadcast and technical venue technology. That has been no different. I mean, if I take our big screens, for example, when we first went out for big screens, we had inquiries and pre-qualification submissions from about 30 different companies, both within Scotland, within the UK, and internationally. And we're able to kind of fold some of those smaller companies who express an interest into potential subcontract roles, etc., as we go forward into the venues. We also we try and implement our values as a kind of family games through our procurement process. We have a sustainable procurement policy which commits us to paying a living wage to everybody who works on the games, which obviously, again, having to do more with less is quite a challenge. That also covers materials, transport, packaging, etc., for everything that we bring into our sites. So if I can just kind of go back to how we go through host broadcaster and our broadcast rights agent contract, and kind of look at how we can take advantage of these quite restrictive processes to get what we want and a positive outcome that's attractive for people within the industry as well. Basically, for host broadcaster, we took that outside of that process. We still adhered to all the stipulations of it. We adhered to everything that we're obligated to in terms of transparency, etc. But what that enabled us to do was to take that outside of everybody in the world could come and look at it, and we could still invite people, we could still talk to them, and to do that, it was a specific exclusion around public broadcasting through the legislation. And the other thing we did is obviously there's almost a triangle here with our organising committee at the top, our host broadcaster, and our broadcast rights agent. Those two we don't regard as contractors, and this is something I think Rob will touch on going forward. We view them as part of our organisation. They sit within our office. They're part of the commercial function of Glasgow 2014. They work together and they work with us, and it's almost a triangular approach. And that's the benefit of bringing these guys on early, and this kind of different approach that we've taken to other games in the past is that it's not a kind of challenge we're lumping on them. They're not bringing us problems. It's issues that we can solve between ourselves to get more for less on the budget. And that kind of feeds into what I think is kind of, we're looking at this kind of fairly high level today, and I think that feeds into my last point there, which is we need to manage the contract and not the contractor. We don't have the resources or the size as an organising committee to kind of have daily planning. We need to be able to trust our contractors, our partners, to go ahead and deliver the things that we've contracted them to deliver. That's why we adopt this kind of partnering approach. So that's really something we've got to operate at a strategic and not a tactical level. So if I can now hand over to Rob, who's going to talk through some of the more kind of on-the-ground venue challenges.
Thanks, Phil. Venue challenges. I have no venue challenges. I wish. That list there, I think, sort of represents a pretty standard list for most broadcast gigs. It's immovable. You make mistakes. Everybody sees them. managing expectations and budgets, and managing change. I think that's the same for just about every event, every broadcast. I think again, for me and my team and managing the stakeholders, the fact that we're doing this times 31 across multiple venues, multiple platforms, that makes it challenging. And we have a mix of venues in that we're using some slightly older venues that might be renovated, that might not be purpose-built for what we're trying to use them for, so that brings quite a few challenges into the mix. Then we have venues that don't exist at all, so it's 100% overlay, and we have a lot of dependencies on temporary power and structures, which obviously if they're delayed or there's problems with them, that then directly impacts us and how we deliver the technology and deliver the technology that the broadcasters use. And then we have our new venues, which, to be honest, we're very fortunate with our new venues, so I haven't got too much to say about them. I think the other real challenge for us, because of the volume of technology, the short time, and the different types of technology we have to get into these venues, in most cases we need to get into them early, which is a challenge in that they're all working venues. They all have business as usual. They're all trying to make a dollar. They don't want scores of people running all over their venue, drilling holes and hanging things up. So we've had to build a very good relationship with the venues and the venue owners, so we can actually sneak in there early and get little portions of the work done, making the bigger portion at the end smaller for us and more achievable. And I think that's probably been one of the biggest challenges, because they're all very busy venues, is, like I say, getting in there, building that relationship with the venue owners to get in and try to get stuff done, ready for the broadcasters to come in, ready for the athletes to come in, the press, the media. Other challenges for us, we're actually fortunate in that our venues are reasonably close together, unlike London, where they were scattered all over the place. That is quite difficult. Previous events that I've done also with Rugby World Cup and what have you, where the venues are scattered all over the country, become a logistic nightmare. Just to keep everything consistent and standardised across those venues is a nightmare. So I think more than a challenge, I think we're fortunate in Glasgow that the venues are close together. We're able to actually standardise most of our technology delivery. So that means when the broadcasters walk up to their commentary positions or their compounds, pretty much from venue to venue or the venue media centres, the technology is the same, works the same, it looks the same, it feels the same, and they feel comfortable. So I think that's one of the key goals we've tried to achieve across our venues, is the consistency and the standardisation, just to make it easy, one for us to support and for our users to actually use it and have fun and tell the story of the games.
It's yours.
Lessons learned. Again, we've been very fortunate in that big test event before us, London 2012. We've managed to secure a lot of contractors and partners that have done it before. They've just been through games, it's fresh in their mind. In a lot of cases, they still have resources around as well. We've benefited untold for that. Also, in equipment, we've been able to secure some equipment ex-London. I think the biggest thing with that also is some of our bigger typical corporate partners are not used to working in the event world. They're not used to business as unusual, which I think a lot of you as broadcasters will agree that no two shoots or sets are ever the same. There's always challenges, there's always quirky things. You work long hours, you work the weekends, you work nights. Some of our more traditional corporate partners are not used to this, but luckily have had a taste of it from London, so it makes it easier for us to get them to work alongside us. Our mantra is own as little as possible, because after the games we're done, we're wrapped up, we don't want to own a lot of kit, so we try to rent and lease most of our equipment to save our dissolution at the other end. Again, this is touching on the access and getting into these actual venues to do what we need to do. That's we learnt and have learnt from previous events that is key. We are not in the position that we're going to have a huge test event program like London did. We've got a condensed test event program. So again, we need to get most of that work done make very good use of the testing time that we do have, and put on a great show. The other big one that we've been fortunate with from the fallout from London is the locals that were involved with London, combined with their knowledge and their experience from London, and their local knowledge has been outstanding. A lot of our venues, we can walk in there and those guys know the venues inside out, know them like the back of their hand. That's golden for us. The other one is the only constant thing really for us in the events world here, especially sporting events, is change. It's the only constant thing. You think you just got something sorted out and it changes. So we've got to be able to have the flexibility, and our partners have got to be able to have the flexibility to move with that change. And that from a procurement perspective does present some challenges. In a lot of cases, our scopes and our final bills of materials won't be confirmed until 2014. Even though we've signed our partners up, we've got contractors in place, the final requirements, and on most cases, won't be signed up, won't be firmed up until 2014, and they could still change last minute.
Just as a kind of a review of the outcomes of that program that we've just described, that kind of partnership between the commercial and the technical in delivering this side of the games, is as I think I outlined before. We've had the successful appointment of both the broadcast rights agent and a host broadcaster through the kind of restrictive legislative procedure that we outlined. And just to kind of again reiterate that the way that we've been able to achieve that is to kind of reimagine how it's been done in the events world in the past, is to, rather than look at that as being the back end of the process, look at integrating them as a partner at the front end of the process. And this is a theme I'll kind of touch on through this section, is to help design things with us. Is rather than kind of come and impose things, we're a very small organisation, as we said, and, we have to be able to operate on a kind of strategic level, is we have to be able to go to these people and say, right, we trust you to work with us, to give us your expertise, to design that process through with us. And that doesn't just apply to the two kind of most public, large contractors we've got there, but that goes right down to kind of things like our audio partner, our big screens partner, is from the start of that process, the way we've been able to kind of get those savings, which we identify there, is to get them to design cost out for us through the process. We went through an iterative procurement process for all of those, where we kind of sat down with a number of selected providers and said, tell us from this scope of works what you think will work, what you don't think will work, and then kind of do an iterative scope of works based on input from the industry. And from that, we're able to kind of get to not only what we want, but what will work within our venues and within our kind of logistical time frame challenges and our budgetary challenge as well. As Rob identified there as well, we've been very, very fortunate with the way the local supply chain have engaged with us in Glasgow and in Scotland, and that takes away a lot of kind of the need for hands-on project management from the organising committee and from even our kind of tier 1 contractors. If we can get these kind of tier 2, tier 3 kind of freelance small guys who are within Glasgow, who know the venues, who know the industry, who know the people within there, we can really kind of, that helps fold them in as partners to us. We're relying on their knowledge. It makes them feel part of the whole experience, and obviously they're going to want to push themselves a bit more for us then. But 2, it means that we can be hands-off, and it saves us money and time in having to kind of project management that. Going back to the kind of what we learned from London 2012 is we have found as well that the kind of wider supply chain within the UK are now kind of almost battle-hardened from London 2012. There's experience of tendering for it, there's experience of contracting it, there's experience of delivering a major, large, multi-venue sports event. That has its kind of upside and its downside for us. It has, firstly, the upside, and that, as I say, they're up that learning curve already. We're not having to teach people on the job now. We've got a massive supply chain out there, and we can kind of pick and choose from them almost. But the downside of that is as well, the statistic I gave you before, that our total budget for delivering these games within the OC is 1/3 of London 2012 security budget. The price difference is obviously, the expectation of how many people you can bring in, the expectation of how much gear we're going to allow you to have, the expectation of how much overhead you can lump onto the project is kind of it's managing that. And just as an example of a kind of random project, I've had projects going that are 200% above budget on bids from people who delivered the same thing at London, and it is that Olympic effect. Could you just talk to the kind of phase scope development, Rob? I think that's
Yeah, I also I'll add to the expectation piece as well. I mean, the total technology budget in London is the same as our total operational budget, but we're still expected to deliver an international level quality product to a similar crowd. So it is extra challenging for us. I think we have benefited in a lot of ways. The phase scope approach. So as the organisation has slowly grown, we've been gathering portions of scope, rationalising pieces of scope, and our procurement has kind of moved alongside that, and our scopes, as I alluded to before, continue to grow phase by phase as we get information in, as we get requirements in, as we understand who needs what, when they need it, for how long, what sort of services. Our scope continues to grow, and at the moment we're aiming to have most of those fairly well finalised by 2014. At that point we'll actually finalise our designs. Of course, as the scope grows, we have to keep designing as well. So there's a lot of processes going on in tandem, slowly building up step by step as we get the pieces of the puzzle comes in step by step by step. It's not like perhaps a typical procurement where you've got your whole scope, you've got your bill of materials, you go out to market and you procure it. For us, it's been step by step, phase by phase, phase by phase. I think again, getting back to one of Philip's points, we've been very lucky that most of our suppliers are actually present in our offices and a part of that design phase. Unlike Olympics, for example, where the broadcasters, OBSL, were very much a separate entity from the organising committee, governed by the IOC. We have actually brought our host broadcaster, Sunset Vine Global Television, into our offices. They sit in our offices, they work side by side. They have their own offices, but they have a complete production and design team sitting in our offices, working with our guys, going to all the venue team meetings, discussing the problems, coming up with the solutions, and helping feed into that scope. And that's been fantastic. It's not typically done like that. I think we're seeing the benefits of it. The teams are actually working really well together, building those relationships early, rather than typically broadcasters come in very late, dumped on the ground, and then have to work out who's who in the zoo. These guys actually already know who's who in the zoo, who they need to go to in the venues to get stuff done, who are the reliable people that if you ask them, they're going to get you the stuff that you need. I think we're seeing that on both sides, though. From my team side, they know from the broadcast side who to go to when they need to find out what it is the broadcasters actually need, when it is they need it, what colour is it, what size is it. It's been fantastic, actually. It's one of the. I've done a lot of large events, especially sporting events, and it's the first time where they have been truly integrated into the organisation, and it's actually we're reaping benefit from it for sure. I threw this quote in because I actually wanted to just change a couple of words, and I think it kind of sums up the experience or the reception or interest we've had from our contractors, our broadcasters, and most of the people we're working with. And I wanted to change from all walks of life to all sectors of business and commercial sectors. We've had a fantastic response, as Phil alluded to, not only from local companies who just want to be a part of it, some of the bigger companies and corporations that have done this before, who want to be a part of it, want to be part of the organisation and want to be part of the family. It's been fantastic, and I think the big difference from Olympics, especially Summer Olympics and Commonwealth Games, is the Summer Olympics, they manage you. You don't manage them. They're that big. It's quite a monster. Once it gets a roll on, it really gets some momentum. Whereas I think Glasgow 2014, although smaller, is a much friendlier games. It's a smaller team. It's a tighter team. We work closer together, and I think that's a fantastic thing.
And just finally, so you don't have to listen to us talk all afternoon, does anybody have any questions regarding anything we've just said, anything you'd like further clarity on, anything at all?
Easy.
No one? Well, thank you very much for your time, everybody. We appreciate it.
Thank you.